The Great Adventures of Slick Rick. Never heard it. So to be fair, I've heard most of this album because a lot of this album is so iconic, it's kind of hard to miss. These songs like The Ruler's Back, Children's Story, Hey Young World, these are such classic songs that it's kind of hard to not hear these songs. I've never actually sat down and listened to it just because, I don't know, I guess no one around me had bought it and sat down and listened to it, so I never did. The album starts out with Treat Her Like a Prostitute. What a way to start an album. Even in 1988, that was a pretty terrible thing to say. But I dare you to listen to this song and not crack a smile. It's everything that you love about Slick Rick. It's so over the top. It's funny. It's kind of hard to take serious. But you can't treat all women like prostitutes. That's just bad business. I never knew that Slick Rick produced this song, and he actually produced half the album. I didn't know he was a producer, so that's something I learned. This album is mostly produced by him and the Bomb Squad, which I didn't see coming at all. So next up is The Ruler's Back, which is the only song that's not produced by either him or the Bomb Squad, and it's produced by Jam Master Jay. By this time, it had been 3 years since Lottie Dottie came out and The Show. Practically every song on this album has some vocal sample from either Lottie Dottie or The Show. And next up, we have A Children's Story, which, I mean, what can you say about A Children's Story? This is another song that he produced. The song is pretty flawless. As far as stories go, it's just a great story. Next we have The Moment I Feared, which is sort of like a children's story, but a very darker version of it. It's about a guy that he just continually does worse and worse things until he ends up in jail. And as far as I know, it's the only rap song where the protagonist gets raped. Next we have Let's Get Crazy. Okay, so everything before this, I was absolutely in love with. I was like, okay, this is a Slick Rick that everyone's talking about. I mean, I had heard all of these songs before, but it just reiterated that this is one of the greatest to ever do it. He's amazing, and that's why this album is a classic. And then I got to this song. I think it's the production that lets him down the most on this song. This is produced by the Bomb Squad. It's not one of their best. It's sort of like someone went, okay, enough with the storytelling stuff, just rock the party. Lyrically, it's a really great verse, but for me, it ruins the whole momentum of the album. It throws everything off, and this album never got back on track. I was never as in love with it as I was in the beginning. There are definitely good songs after this, but I just couldn't get back in the groove after hearing this song. But this song does have one of my favorite lines on it. If Martin Luther were here, he'd say, "Hey Rick, I have a dream." I don't know, just the idea that Martin Luther King would come back just to tell Slick Rick that he had a dream is hilarious to me, and I love it. While I didn't like Let's Get Crazy, I didn't hate it. But when I heard Indian Girl, this album came to a screeching halt. If you take the song at face value, it's about Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier, raping an Indian girl. Now you could take the angle that this is an allegory about how the white man raped the Native American, but then you find out that Davy Crockett has a Timex, and it kind of throws that out the window. There are so many things wrong with this track. We can start with the production. Slick Rick produced it. He's using the same shaker sound that he used in A Children's Story. It sounds like the same drums. Not a whole lot is going on. Even if you can get past the racism and the rape in this song, it's just not good storytelling, which is baffling considering how good he is at it. And then right after this, we get Teenage Love, which is a very weird transition. I assume he made this transition on purpose, maybe to wipe away the stank of the previous song. This song is about exactly what the title says, Teenage Love. It's actually pretty good if you hear it on its own, but hearing it in the context of this album just really throws it off. It like the previous song doesn't do it any favors. Also, this song was the B-side to Treat Her Like a Prostitute. Apparently he wanted to have that dynamic of a very inappropriate song with something like Teenage Love. So after that, we move into Mona Lisa, which is another classic song. But by the time you get to this song, you realize that Slick Rick doesn't seem to have too many tricks in his bag when it comes to production. He's using the same shaker sound, it's the same drums, not a whole lot's going on. Again, this song on its own sounds really good, but when you pair it with this album, it gets kind of repetitive. Next we have Kit What's the Scoop, which is A reference that is really going to be lost on a lot of younger listeners. Kit in this song refers to the car from the TV show Knight Rider. Kit actually stands for Knight Industries 2000, but this song only has one T in the kit, so maybe it's a different car. The song is okay, but the story is all over the place. Basically, Slick Rick is about to rock a crowd, but the crowd has been stolen. So he's rocking in front of nobody. So he calls Kit to help him to figure out where the crowd is. By the second verse, he's going to get something to eat, and then he gets kidnapped. He eventually escapes his kidnappers. By the third verse, he calls Kit to go help him rock the show. He gets rid of the imposter, whoever that is, and then all is well. It's not a great story. The next song we have is Hey Young World, and to me this song really saves this album. It's a song about respecting your parents and not doing drugs, but somehow it's not corny. Next we have Teacher Teacher. I love the drum sample on this one, but the horns kind of sound like an 80s detective movie. The album finishes out with Lick the Balls. I assumed that this song was going to be a bragging song, obviously Lick the Balls, but you find out in the hook of the song that the song is called Lick the Balls just because that's what he wanted to call it. At no point does he tell you to lick his balls, which is unexpected. I do understand why this album is a classic. While Slick Rick didn't invent storytelling raps, he is one of the best to do it. He's the most consistent. And A Children's Story is probably the best storytelling rap that's ever been written. However, this album doesn't really hold up. The highs are really high, but the lows are really low. For me, this album started out incredible. I thought I was going to love this album when it first started out. And by the time it got to Let's Go Crazy, it just took a nosedive, and it never really recovered until like the very end. I was probably most shocked to learn that while he is one of the greatest storytellers of all time, he's not always great at it. There's some hits and there's some misses, and it's probably an equal amount of both. So have you heard The Great Adventures of Slick Rick? Are you still bumping it? I'm gonna be doing 2 of these a week until I run out of albums. Hopefully that won't be anytime soon. I would tell you to like and subscribe, but you know how YouTube works. Please hit the bell so you'll be notified. I hope this helps if you hadn't heard the album. If you have heard the album and you disagree, I'm sure you're gonna let me know. So I'll see you next time.